So if you have already got a buy now, pay later type of arrangement account, as of the 10th of June, big changes happened.
Banks don't like to see buy now, pay later in your transactions.
Yes,
It has been shown that we spend more using buy now, pay later than any other method, including credit cards.
I see so many people get into hot water with them.
Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by BetaShares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, BetaShares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with BetaShares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian
Lexi Smith,
Finance Podcast.
welcome to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I am wonderful today. I have defrosted. I've been freezing cold, but I've cranked the heater.
Yeah, so for the people that are in Melbourne listening to this, they will be horrified that we're sitting here in Queensland complaining. I spoke to my dad this morning and I was like, it's 13 degrees. And he was saying it's -1 where he is. So yeah, we shouldn't be complaining, but we're really struggling. I've got my Uggs on.
Queenslanders aren't born for this.
No, we
Even though I was
definitely
born
are.
in Sweden,
Yeah, you should.
still not built for this.
Climatized. So I'm so excited to have Lexi on the podcast. For those who aren't aware, Lexi is an amazing money coach. We'll hear about her now. You'll see her popping up in different episodes. She's also on the Rask website as one of our amazing money coaches that we refer people to when they need some help with their money. But Lexi, give us a quick run through on what you do, who you are.
Ex-financial advisor, like a lot of money coaches seem to be these days, and now help individuals, couples, families with their everyday money management and goal achievement, which lights me up. I love doing this work. So I get to talk to lots of different people from all over Australia, and everyone's situations are so different, so it keeps it really interesting.
Absolutely love that. So today we are talking about something that is very close to our hearts, something that we're very passionate about, and it's buy now, pay laters. So,
Or is it buy now, panic later? Jen?
buy now, panic later? Absolutely. So I won't rant about it. Let's just get into what's happening. So why we're talking about this today is because changes have been happening in this space. Now, this is something that a lot of people in the finance industry, like ourselves, have been wanting this change to happen for a very, very long time. It's now happened as of the 10th of June. Big changes happened. So we thought we would talk about it today. So if you have already got a buy now, pay later type of arrangement account, there's some impacts for you and things that you should be aware of, but particularly for people that are maybe thinking about using a service like this in the future, there'll be changes there. So these came into effect as of the 10th of June. I am very, very excited to see them here and watch what happens in the space, but let's dive into what's actually happening. So buy now, pay later schemes, for those who aren't aware, it's a service, right? And where you can purchase an item, get the item, kind of like layby, but you actually already have the item, and then you might pay it off in 4 installments or 6 or whatever the terms are. But you can purchase the item pretty much on a credit facility, and then it is broken up into repayments. And it'll automatically debit from your account, but you actually got the item. Now, what is really interesting about buy now, pay laters is they weren't treated like any other credit facility in Australia. They weren't regulated like a personal loan or a credit card was. So they were very, very easy to get. And to be honest, as a money coach, and Lexi, I think you'd agree, like, I see so many people get into hot water with them. They have really, really caused some big issues in spending and propelled the, instant gratification that, oh, it's fine, I can't afford it, but I can get it on buy now, pay later. And then, as Lexi said, buy now, panic later. Like, you've got the hit, you got that item, you can put food, like the amount of things that stores that offer buy now, pay later is crazy. And then you've got the hangover that you're still paying for this 4, 6, 8 weeks later. What's your experience with
A
them?
lot of people haven't necessarily heard that buy now, pay later term, but what they have heard of is Afterpay, Zip, Hum, Klarna, PayPal Pay in 4, Combank Step Pay. They are all buy now, pay later.
Yes. And a lot of the time, they have been masking as, well, this is your budgeting system. Like, we're not credit, we're not bad debt. And they are. They're like, what's that saying about the wolf in sheep's clothing?
Yeah.
No. So, like anything, these are financial tools. So we're not against debt. Debt helps people get where they're going, like then they need to go. I've talked recently about I have used these kind of products. It's just you want to be really aware of how they work, what the traps are, and make sure that they're not changing your financial habits, like your spending habits and things, which is what they do. So a lot of the time people will say things like, oh yeah, I use them, or I use a credit card, or but I never pay interest. I pay it off on time. But there's research that shows that even if you're not financially being disadvantaged by them, like paying extra fees and interest, that your spending habits can change between 18 and 40%. Like increase your spending by 18 to 40%, some of these reports say, which is crazy. And it's because we're thinking, well, it's all right, I'll deal with it in the future. Future me can pay that off. I've got the next few paychecks coming in. So it's a good tool, but it's used for it gets people in some hot water. You got to use it for
Yeah.
good and not evil.
And there is more and more studies being done. Late last year, there was some research published in the Journal of Marketing that showed that buy now, pay later not only increases the chance of actually making the purchase, but it increases the cart size. So, maybe you were only going to spend $100 if you're using your own money, but because you're using buy now, pay later, maybe you're spending 125, just as an example.
I was going to say, and of course, that is like that's why shops are offering it, right? So it's a big fee for them to like these buy now pay laters charge a fee to the merchant, so to
Yeah.
the shop, and it's a big chunk. But they know that you're going to spend more, so it's worth them paying that fee to have that service. Like
Yeah.
it's not like them just doing you a favor at their expense. They know that they're going to be better off.
Yeah. There was another study done actually earlier this year in 2025. It was published in the Journal of Retailing, and that spoke about the numerosity effect. So it's the fact that consumers are focusing on that the first payment rather than the whole cost. And that, of course, drives up spending because, if you're buying something for $400, you're thinking, can I afford the $100 payments? Yeah, I can do that. Can I afford the full $400? Maybe not. So it has been shown that we spend more using buy now, pay later than any other method, including credit cards.
Yeah.
So credit cards used to kind of be lumped into that comment that you spend more with a credit card, but it's shown that buy now, pay later is actually the thing that makes you spend more.
Yeah, it changes how our brain sees the impact of things and the value of things, which is it's just crazy. So these things are out there. They've been around for a really long time, but what's actually changed is now they are going to be regulated as of 10th of June. They're going to be regulated like credit cards and personal loans, which should have been from the start, right? So what that means is when you're applying for it, there's going to be more of an application process. If you default on it, it's actually going to affect your credit rating. So your credit history, which has an impact on, getting a home loan in the future and things. So right now they don't have any kind of consequences like that other than, expensive fees and things, but they're going to be regulated under the credit licensing regulations like kind of the banks use. So this is really important because all these companies that are popping up, Lexi mentioned some of them before, they didn't need to have a credit license before. Like a financial planning firm has to have an Australian financial services license, be really regulated. They didn't. So I'm actually really interested to see if all of these companies move to getting credit, if some of them maybe kind of combine and use one, if we see some kind of drop off, because it is going to be a big uptick in their regulations, responsibility, costing, I would assume, like licensing and stuff isn't cheap. So I'm really interested to see what happens from like the business perspective of these, but how consumers can be kind of aware of what's happening or impacted. If you've already got the accounts, probably not so much. You may see
Unless you
some
miss a payment.
Yes, yes. Oh, absolutely. It's now going to go on your credit. But from the everyday thing, you might get some communications out saying, they've got a license now, different policies. I think they're going to cap fees, which is really, really important. But yeah, this is going to affect your credit. And when you apply for these different ones, it'll go on your credit history as well. So if you apply for multiple credit cards, it's always an inquiry on your credit history. So that will kind of happen as well. But I think the main thing will be for the people that haven't got these facilities yet, it's just going to be a little bit harder to get, which is a very, very good thing.
You mentioned earlier that as financial coaches or money coaches, we do see people get into hot water with these things. I remember really clearly I had one particular client and we worked out that a quarter of their family income was going towards buy now, pay later repayments every single week.
Yeah,
And
it's
that was
crazy.
totally unsustainable. And they didn't necessarily, they couldn't get out of that cycle because so much of their pay was going to these payments that then they had to put more on buy now, pay later because they didn't have enough left over that week. And so it was like that snowball.
When I have done in the past, like I had an Afterpay account, and I remember always being like, is that still going? Have I still got one more payment left? Like, because when you purchase the thing, you're like, oh, it's 4 payments, for example. I always because it's 8 weeks later or something, if it's fortnightly. I'm like, is that still not paid off? Like, and I can't even remember the item that I purchased. So that stuff for me, I absolutely had to get rid of. But I spoke in a different episode and I've got a blog post about it. When I got my dental work done, I actually put it on, I think it was a Hum. And I proactively did the numbers and decided that it was worth the trade-off for me to use that and pay the monthly fee. I think it was like an 18-month repayment plan. I had the money to do what I wanted to do to pay my dental fee, but I had all of these other expenses, was going through an expensive divorce, had legal fees that I had no idea how much they were going to be, and was building a house, which always blows out. So I'm like, I'm going to keep the cash with me. The trade-off's going to be that, yes, I'm paying more in this and I'm committed to this, repayment plan and things. But it just made sense for me at the time. So I'm while I probably sound anti these types of things a lot of the time, I'm anti not understanding what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. And there may be certain situations where it is, maybe we can use the word sensible to get buy now, pay later. One instance that I can think of is that if you are someone with absolutely no emergency fund, nothing in the bank, and your fridge dies, you need a fridge. Like, we need to eat. So if you don't have any other way of funding that, maybe buy now, pay later for a fridge. Maybe that would be a sensible move in that scenario. But there are very few scenarios I can think of that kind of do warrant that kind of arrangement if you can otherwise avoid it.
Yeah, I think it's a tool. It's there to help you out. And a lot of the time we get into debt, like we need to go into debt to get out of sticky situations, whether it's, like a fridge, a car, leaving an unsafe work environment or relationship. It's okay to use these things if you need it. But where we see people using them is in this discretionary spending. Like I said, I couldn't even remember what I put on Afterpay. And they're not having the financial foundations to get out of that cycle and to start improving things so that they maybe don't need it, or maybe they used it in a different way, that they've got their finances working really well and they're making sure they're putting money aside for that repayment and cash flow's working really well. It could complement how you manage your money, but the reality is we just don't see that happening a lot of the time. So like anything, I think people can use tools like this well, but we want to make sure that you are, and you just don't have your head in the sand and it's a solution to a bigger problem, like a Band-Aid, we were talking about before.
Yeah. And that's similar to, I would encourage people to avoid car loans where they can. But there has been a situation in my life where we made a really informed decision to get a car loan because, like you with the other payments you were talking about, we wanted that cash for a really particular purpose. And it was going to have, the flow on impact of that, of using that cash meant that, we were going to have to pay lender's mortgage insurance in that scenario. So as you just said, it's about sitting down, working out the pros and cons, and then making an informed decision. And that applies. Like, you can have blanket rules for personal finance, but then you need to apply that lens of, but in this situation, are things different?
Yes. And the great thing about this change with the buy now, pay later is, if it was a terrible thing, it'd be being banned, right? Like that would be the goal. But it's not. We're just saying, and the government and ASIC and things are saying, okay, cool, this product, it works for people. It's not terrible, but let's have it regulated. So this is a really positive thing. It's not as if, you should stay away from these completely. We just want the industry to be more regulated so that we can make sure that the people that are getting these can afford them and they have the same assessment that, credit cards and things do, which still is pretty loose, I would say. But we want to make sure that people aren't getting themselves into trouble that's then affecting them for years and years down the track. Like poor credit, your credit history is just so damaging to all of those big life goals that you have down the track that might be, property ownership, businesses, being a company director, like all these different things. That credit report has a big impact.
And if you're listening to this and you are already in a bit of a pickle, perhaps, there is supports that are available. So I know you've mentioned it before in another episode, Gemma, but financial counselling in Australia is a free service. It's offered by organisations like the Salvation Army. Yes, there is eligibility criteria, but one of those criteria is you being at imminent risk of not being able to pay a bill. So if that's you, do a quick Google search, financial counselling in Australia. There's a few different options. It is definitely a really great support for those that are eligible.
Yeah, I did an episode recently with Victoria, Bad Bitch Money. Can I say bitch in here? And she's got the book Know Your Worth. So I had her on it. She used to be a financial counselor and she talked about all of those services because I always thought, and it might be a misconception that other people had, that there was an income threshold for you to be eligible for those types of services. But it's not. It's actually that something specific has happened, like an issue has happened and put you in a position that you can't get out of. And it doesn't matter what your income is, you can still be really struggling.
Yeah, I did have a client whose income was around $240,000 and they had gotten themselves into a big pickle. And I did, when they came to me for financial coaching, I said, before we dive into this, let's see if you can get some financial counseling because it is a free service. And they did try, but they were knocked back. They couldn't, as you said, there's no income limit, but in that particular scenario, that person just wasn't eligible. But it's worth a try, isn't it?
Absolutely. And this is what I want people to know is you just need to pick up the phone and try. So if you went to a money coach, we might suggest, hey, try that first. If you went to that first and they said you weren't eligible, worst case, it's a no, right? And then you go, right, what's next? And that might be money coaching. And it might be like so often that people will call us for money coaching and we go, no, you're ready for financial advice. It's not us. But by picking up the phone, you're going to get one step closer to knowing who the person is and how you can get the support. But the National Debt Helpline, like all of those types of places are really great. And I would say that majority of their calls would have an element of buy now, pay later now. Like just the sheer issues that we see that come out of this. Yeah. But as I said, like I'm sure there's heaps of people that have been managing them really well. I had to get rid of it because I just constantly was like, how is this still not paid? Like it just feels like it's going forever. Do you use them? Or have you used them?
No, I've never had an Afterpay or a buy now, pay later account. I was just going to say, in relation to if you speak to a mortgage broker, typically and this is even before these changes, they would say banks don't like to see buy now, pay later in your transactions.
Yes. So the reason for that is it's telling the bank is assuming, hey, this person can't save for something. Hey, this person can't manage their money. They're buying things they can't afford. So that might not be your reality, but that's what the bank are assuming. And so in your credit, like in your assessment for loans and eligibility, they're going to be a lot more conservative in what you're spending, or it might actually just be a no. But so many mortgage brokers, will let you know that The banks are looking for buy now, pay laters. They're looking for regular transactions, regular cash out, poke cues, any kind of gambling apps, anything that could potentially mean that you're not in control of your decisions and spending that could then get you into hot water down the track.
Mm. And you and I talk a lot about talking to kids about money. And I remember really clearly from my own childhood, my mum saying to me, we don't use lay-by because if we can't afford to pay for it in full, we can't afford it. And so that's just how I was brought up. And that's probably why I've just never had buy now, pay later, because it was just ingrained in me from such a young age. If you can't afford to pay for it in full, like now, you can't afford it. So
That's so interesting because I was huge on laybys. So there used to be like a local Target, and it was when Kmart wasn't the popular thing, it was Target.
yeah.
And I remember always having laybys, and I was always like a really good saver and budgeter. And that made me feel like in control, that I was working towards something, the reward of actually paying it off and then getting it. So I actually really loved that and think of it as a positive thing. But yeah, it's so interesting how your family was totally different.
When I had my first child, I did notice in mums groups on Facebook that people would use lay-by, not necessarily to pay things off, but to not have Christmas presents in the home and be able to just pick it up. But, I call myself Last Minute Lexi. Last Minute Lexi does not have a problem with that because Last Minute Lexi is probably Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve anyway. So again, never had lay-by, never had buy now, pay later.
See, I'm more all my Christmas shopping by September, October. So keeping it in the store on lay-by with just a little bit to pay off would be so much more convenient for me. I'd be all over
Actually,
that.
I totally just lied to you. I have used lay-by once, and it was.
You're
This will be good for
crazy.
anyone maybe with that is pregnant or looking to be pregnant in the future. Car seats. The warranty starts the day you pick it up. And so we were a little bit more prepared and we chose a car seat earlier on in the pregnancy. I paid for it in full the day that we bought it, but I effectively kept it on lay-by so that I didn't pick it up until much closer to the end of my pregnancy to really extend that warranty.
Well, there's a little hack for you. That's and they do go on sale at different times, and like we have, there might be a big extreme sale that you want to be putting something on hold, so you get that price locked in, but you don't necessarily need the item, you don't necessarily need to or have the cash flow to pay it. So I think lay-by is very different, but when you think of it, we're thinking, oh wow, I just got this item on lay-by, but I get it right now. And then that is, it's creating all of these issues of that instant gratification that we're going, well, we can just have whatever we want. So I would love to talk about, because we always talk about a toolkit for people to work out what works with them with their money, whether it's budgeting, cash flow, earning more money, whatever. But what are some things to help people? I want to cover two things. What are some things to help people actually manage their money so they don't need these buy now, pay laters? And then let's talk about how people can different tools that people could do to stop the instant gratification. Okay, so this one, I know that you love both of them. So let's talk about the first one first.
I would say to anyone that has had enough of their own excuses and just wants to get out of this cycle, because it impacts our mental health more than we think. Knuckling down and, you might do a no spend challenge, for example, just to have like this little period where you are reducing your expenses to be able to get back on top. So I know I say to myself, and have said this to myself in the past, I just need a week off to like tidy up the house. It's like, that you tidy it up and then it goes back to how it was. But this is almost similar to that. Like, it's just a week. You just have to like go back to basics, get creative, do what you can to really reduce your discretionary spending to be able to get out of the cycle if you are in the buy now, pay later cycle.
So one of my little hacks is, probably applies to both, right? But we always focus on what we need to cut out and things, and money's a tool to be enjoyed. So I like to do a rotating cut. So it's like, right, well, this month or this period, I'm not going to buy any clothes, but I'm not saying I'm never buying any clothes for the year. And you can kind of do it based on your social calendar. So I might go, right, I'm not buying any takeout for the next 3 weeks. And that's what I'm cutting, but I'm going to have it again in the future. And it's like, well, that makes sense because I know what I've kind of got. That might be I'm not going out for dinner, whatever it is, but it's a short sacrifice and you can rotate what goes and what stays. That's probably my hack that I like to
And so what you're doing
encourage.
there is you're gamifying or gamifying the process. And any ways that we can make this stuff fun means that we're more likely to do it, because who wants to do something that's boring?
Yeah.
So
And do it on your own terms. Like I obviously I'm not going to say I'm not going to buy any new clothes if I've got like a wedding to go to in a month, like
Yeah.
it's making sure that you can do things, but you can do it on your terms.
yeah. And a similar thing to do would be, and it's just a variation of what you've just said, it might be a 5-day no spend challenge. And you get to pick what days that you do it. It might be a Monday to Friday. It might include a weekend. You might do it with your colleagues. You might do it with your partner or your sister or a friend. And in those 5 days, there's going to be no eating out. There's going to be no retail. There's going to be no extra, beauty or entertainment, that kind of thing. You can do these things on day 0. You can do them on day 6.
Yeah.
You can be a bit sneaky.
Yeah.
But it's seeing how often we just mindlessly tap. And I
That's it.
find that those people who think that a no spend challenge will be hard sometimes actually find it easy. And those people who think it's going to be easy often find it hard. So
People don't realize how often they do actually tap. So sometimes when clients, I'm working with them to get their spending under control, I make them write down on a piece of paper every time they've tapped and spent money. And it's a different exercise than looking through your bank accounts at the end of the week and seeing where, because it hurts to write it down because you're like, oh, yeah, another $5. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I did spend more because you're not thinking about it at the time. So I'll get them to have like a piece of paper on the fridge, or maybe it's on the door. So every time they go out, they have to write down. But it's whatever steps you have to put in place for your brain to think about what you're about to do or what you've just done, because we just mindlessly do things.
And some other ways that you can turn this into a bit more of a fun exercise. Habit trackers. I thrive on habit trackers when I have one. I would describe it as an adult version of a sticker chart. And so you can put whatever you like on your habit tracker. And there are apps and things you can use. They haven't seemed to have worked for me. I try and keep notifications off my phone.
You
So,
need
if
the
it's
gold
not
sticker
in my
on there.
face. Yeah. So you can Google habit tracker, print it off online, a basic template. It might be things that you want to do more of or what you want to do less of. So for me, things that are commonly on there is like floss my teeth, drink 2 liters of water, be physically active. And then the things that might not be on there, it might be no takeaway. And so for every day you do that thing, or rather don't do that thing, you get to tick it or cross it or give yourself a stamp. And so the longer that chain gets, the harder it is to break for a lot of people, because they do thrive on that, the game, and that they're competitive and they
you're
want
just
to
like,
win.
I don't want to get back to day one because look at all
Yeah.
my progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might work really well for some people, and other people, they might do it for one day and then it's out the window. Just finding what works for you.
Mhm.
And then that probably leads into that second part of your question around.
It was around what are the tips to kind of slow the instant gratification? What can we be doing instead? So a really common one is if you're going to buy something, you set a time, like a 24-hour or a 48-hour. You can click to cart, but you can't actually go and buy it. So what are some other ones in your toolbox that you like to talk to clients
Well,
about?
just before we move on, the really good thing about the 24 or 48-hour rule is I find that when we add to cart, normally we get a sneaky promo code like, it looks like you forgot something. Here's 20% off if you want to continue. So
That absolutely
pros and cons.
happens. They're like 2 years later, they're still emailing you, hey, it's in your cart. Like, I'm not the same person I was when I put it in there. I don't want
Yeah.
it.
And something else that I love doing with clients is the traffic light activity. You've heard me speak about this before, Gemma.
Yes,
It
let's
does
absolutely go through this. I love this concept.
it does not have to be time consuming, this activity. You can do it in 10 minutes in front of the TV watching whatever you're binging on Netflix. So what you want to do is grab your recent transactions. So the last, say, 2 to 4 weeks worth of transactions, and go through as many as you can in that 10 minutes. And you want to highlight every single transaction, one of 3 colors. Green is going to be for things like groceries, rent or mortgage, medical appointments. Whatever your gut feeling is when you see that transaction, if it was I had to do it, or it was something really mindful and intentional. So that might be a birthday present for a sibling, or it might be an anniversary dinner, or it might be your favorite hobby. You didn't have to do that. It wasn't green like groceries, but it's something that brought you joy and something that you would do again. Then we've got our red transactions. So our red transactions are those that we look at it and we kind of cringe a little bit inside and think, probably shouldn't have done that. That could be when you're in Kmart grabbing something you needed and you grabbed a few extra things that maybe you didn't need. It could be that you grab some takeaway knowing that you had your lunch in the fridge at work already, and you should eat that because otherwise it's going to go in the bin. That might be a red transaction. Then we've got our orange or amber transactions, and that's anything that didn't really fit in green or red. It was debatable. You could argue either way, potentially. What that will give you is a very visual illustration of what your spending habits are like. So you might see a lot of green with a trickle of orange and red, or you might actually see a lot of orange and red with a trickle of green. And that will help you determine how much you do need to focus on where you're tapping your card and how often you are tapping your card.
Yes, I love that. That is such a good exercise to do. And you could be doing it with, say you're in a partnership. You could both be doing it, and it would be so interesting to see if you thought the same transactions were which, color traffic lights, what you deem as completely necessary and not necessarily.
Yeah. And when we are talking about money with a couple, it's really important to recognize that we potentially both have our own different vices and that we are on the same team trying to achieve the same things. So, because money can
Yes.
cause so much conflict in any relationship,
Definitely does.
we need to
Different
go about these
values.
conversations the right way.
Yeah, and just because it's not a value to you or that's not an important expense, you do need to have some, understanding, compassion, all of that type of thing that is important to them. And how do we make these things work together? How do we fit both these things in? But I think it's important to challenge that. Is it important? Are we just spending, willy-nilly? So that traffic light system would be so interesting to do as a couple as well.
Yeah. And you'll also then notice how many buy now, pay later transactions are in your transaction history.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, that's a really good one. Well, for those that are listening or watching, I'm hoping that you're understanding buy now, pay later is a tool. It is absolutely something that you can use, but you want to be really, really mindful of how it's affecting your spending patterns, not just your cash flow, but the decisions that you're actually making. And when we build really strong financial foundations, we want to have a great mindset and habits and things. So regardless if you're using a buy now, pay later, or you want to move away from it, the tips and tricks that Lexi and I shared around how you can make informed decisions and manage your money and maybe curb some, instant gratification, just click to cart kind of behavior. I hope this really, really helps because managing your money can be really, really stressful. And we want to make sure that whatever you're doing is making your life easier and not harder and not leaving that financial hangover that future you has to deal with. Lexi, thank you so much for being on this episode and we will see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel. Or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.